A midlife crisis is more than just a cultural stereotype. It's a real psychological struggle that can surface between the ages of 40 and 60. Often triggered by aging, loss, or unmet expectations, it can actually lead individuals to question their identity, make impulsive choices, or abruptly abandon long term commitments. While not officially classified yet as a mental illness, the emotional and relational fallout is very real, especially for the spouses and families left behind. This podcast gives voice to those living through the aftermath, exposing the hidden pain, and seeking accountability, healing, and understanding. Thank you for joining us today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. The stories and events discussed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or professional advice. Any names, locations, or identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or real events are purely coincidental. The information presented on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with a qualified expert regarding any decisions related to your specific situation. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the podcast creators. Hey guys, welcome back to MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. And before we begin, I want to remind everybody that I am not a lawyer and nothing shared in this episode today should be taken as legal advice. This podcast, as you know, is for educational and emotional support purposes only. Every marriage, divorce, custody situation, and financial circumstance is unique, and laws vary by state and by country. If you are considering divorce, responding to a filing, or dealing with custody or financial issues, you should totally consult with a licensed family law attorney in your jurisdiction, no matter what state or country you're in. If this topic brings up emotional distress, anxiety, or thoughts of harming yourself, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the U.S. or your local emergency services. Please know you are not weak for needing support and you are not alone, and that is why we're here today. You know, every January, the same thing happens. Family courts flood up, attorneys gear up, and people who have barely spoken for months suddenly explode into total legal warfare. And if you've got somebody in midlife crisis, you can expect this to be times 10 worse than normal. And not because they suddenly fell out of love, but because they finally stopped pretending. And the midlife crisis got to its boiling point. January carries one of the most dangerous myths in divorce. And those myths are, and please note, I'm in California, so it could vary state to state. But I know in my state, I think a lot of people think if they file first, they'll have the upper hand. If they file first, maybe they'll be more on the winning side. And if they might think if they file first, they'll control this. Well, today we are dismantling that illusion legally, psychologically, and emotionally because this belief is destroying families, draining finances, and traumatizing children. And if you were blindsided by a January filing that you never saw coming, please stay on here because this episode is for you today. January, the Super Bowl of divorce. January isn't magic. It's permission. People survive Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all the while holding their breath, pretending, hoping, and enduring. They tell themselves, "Oh, I'll just get through the holidays. I don't want to ruin Christmas for everyone. I'll wait until the kids are okay." But what they're really doing is just delaying the emotional detonation. January represents a fresh start fantasy, escape, reinvention, control. And when someone feels trapped, emotionally, financially, psychologically, January feels like the perfect little launch button. And you guys, here's the truth no one says out loud. January divorces are not about courage. January divorces are about pressure release. So, the state I'm in, California, like many states, is a no fault divorce state. And that means no one has to prove any wrongdoing, no one has to prove cheating, no one has to prove abandonment. The legal reason is almost always irreconcilable differences. So, filing first does not give you more money, doesn't give you custody dominance, doesn't give you legal control. It doesn't even give you moral authority. Property is still split under community property rules. In many states, that's 50-50. Custody is still based on the child's best interest, and support is still calculated by law. You don't gain power when you file first, you gain paperwork. That's it. The clock starts ticking. A lot of times people just file first because they feel, you know, um, humiliated, replaced, panicked, exposed, afraid of losing the narrative. They want to shock their spouse, punish them, scare them, regain control. And this belief explodes during affairs, sudden personality shifts like midlife crisis, and abrupt discards. And here's the deal, you guys. Some people don't file for freedom, they file for dominance. But courts don't reward shock. They reward documentation, stability, and credibility. Midlife crisis-driven filings are often impulsive, rage-based, affair protective, reality avoidant. Someone in midlife crisis files to justify the affair, lock in the fantasy identity, control the story, silence the spouse. This isn't confidence. This is panic disguised as decisiveness. They don't file because they're strong. They file because the truth is closing in on them. And if you're asking, oh my gosh, how could they do this so fast? How could they be this cold? Well, it's because emotional collapse often creates legal impulsivity. So let's talk about who actually has the advantage in divorce. It is not the person who's the loudest. It is not the person who is the angriest or the fastest to file. The real advantage belongs to the person who is emotionally regulated, financially informed, documented, patient, strategic, and, you guys, credible. Courts reward calm. Here's the line to remember. The calm one wins, not the first one. And I can tell you, watching somebody in midlife crisis explode and rage in court and, go out of control with the judge and everybody there is, it's unbelievable. It's almost like a comedy show, except it's not. But you can really tell when people are emotionally dysregulated, and I think the judges know when somebody's clearly in midlife crisis. I could tell. It was really clear. It's really apparent. You guys, remember, do not file while you're in shock. Don't file if you're angry or in grief. Definitely don't file if you're being manipulated or being pushed by your friends or an affair partner, because once the filing hits, financial restraints activate. You can't refinance your home, take out HELOCs, you can't sell stock. Everything's on a restraining order, at least in many of the states. Costs start to escalate, attorneys all of a sudden take over, and your children are going to feel it immediately. Remember, you can always file later, but you cannot undo the explosion once it starts. And if you are the left behind spouse, if you didn't file, if you waited, if you hoped, you didn't lose. You weren't weak. You weren't stupid. You weren't passive. You were clearly trying to save something real. Remember, the one who doesn't file often isn't running. They're the one standing still waiting for truth. I know in my case, I totally didn't file. First of all, I didn't want to spend a couple $100s. Second, I don't believe in divorce. And third, I had no reason to file. We'd already said we were going to do a legal separation. And I think that's very common among the left behind spouse. January divorces are not about bravery. They're about escape. Escape, escape, escape. That's all we ever hear. Filing first doesn't mean you win. It means the war officially begins. And if you're standing in the wreckage of a January filing that you didn't see coming, welcome to the bomb squad. You are not crazy. You were blindsided, and you are not powerless no matter who filed first. And you guys, I want to share some little, I'm going to call it a divorce survival checklist. First, you need to stabilize, pause. Again, this is so important. Pause before making major decisions. Regulate your nervous system, sleep, breathe, hydrate. Those are so important to stay balanced. Accept that shock is going to cloud your judgment. That is totally normal. Start making copies of important documents like financial items, insurance, IDs, birth certificates, marriage certificates. Keep a private, secure place for all your records and notes. Document interactions by fact and not emotionally. And really, as much as possible, try to avoid reactive conversations and emotional confrontations, especially if you're dealing with somebody in midlife crisis or their affair partner. You're going to get nowhere. You're just going to upset yourself, waste time and energy because nothing you say or do is going to be seen as rational by them. They are not rational. So again, avoid reactive conversations and emotional confrontations. Don't negotiate major issues while everybody's dysregulated. That is so important. And you're going to see the MLCers are they can't. One day they'll say they'll give you everything, the next day they'll take it away. They're just dysregulated, you guys. Try to identify at least one safe, grounded person that you can lean on, really somebody grounded and neutral, maybe a licensed therapist or trauma-informed coach. That's super helpful. Get legal information from a licensed attorney. And remember, you do not need to explain your side to everyone. You don't need to rush to win anything. You don't need to mirror their chaos. That's super important. Do not mirror their chaos. Let them go off the deep end and spiral out of control. Remember, this is a process and not a moment. Your worth is not determined by who filed first. The goal right now, you guys, is not to win the divorce. The goal is to survive it intact. It is a long road. If you are standing in the wreckage of a January filing that you did not see coming, this is your bomb drop moment. Not the end of your life, but you guys, this is the moment you stop letting someone else's chaos decide your future. Thanks again for joining us today, you guys, on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Hey guys, this is Trina, and I want to take a moment to speak directly to anyone who didn't choose the collapse but is living with the aftermath. When a spouse enters midlife crisis, the damage doesn't unfold slowly. It happens like an explosion. One day you're living a shared life. The next, the person you trusted has emotionally disappeared, rewriting history, minimizing the damage, and running from the very family they helped build. Friends are confused. The story gets simplified. And the spouse left behind is often expected to handle it quietly, gracefully, all while absorbing the fallout all alone. After the bomb drop, the survival guide for the left behind spouse was written for you. Inside, I will walk you through what is actually happening when someone runs from themselves. Why chasing answers only deepens the wound, and how to stabilize your life after emotional abandonment, emotionally, legally, and within your family. In this book, we talk about why these departures feel so sudden and destabilizing, because they are. Why the spouse who stays is often blamed, erased, or silenced. Why saving yourself is not abandonment, and how to grieve someone who is still alive while finding your footing again. This book does not promise reconciliation. It offers you guys something more necessary at this time, and that is stability, dignity, and a way forward when someone else has chosen to run. After the bomb drop, the survival guide for the left behind spouse is available now on Amazon Kindle in both ebook and paperback. And if you're standing in the blast radius and wondering how to survive what you didn't cause, this book was written for you. Hey, some resources that are available for you guys are thewifeexpert.com. That's Lori McDermott over there at thewifeexpert.com. She also has a new app out. There's tons of videos that can give you all kinds of information on no matter where you are on your MLC journey or trying to reconcile with your spouse. So check out thewifeexpert.com. And if you're not sure if your spouse or yourself is in maybe approaching or in a midlife crisis, be sure to check out Kenda Root's quiz at midlifecrisismarriageadvocate.com. Again, that's a midlifecrisismarriageadvocate.com. That's a quick little 2-minute quiz. It's free. So check that out as well. We have a ton of resources out there for you guys. So check them out. Thanks. You guys, forward moving spouses, you are not alone. Left behind spouses, you are not alone. Those in crisis, you are certainly not alone. This is just crazy how epidemic this has become. I have a waiting list now of people from around the world that I'm trying to get to. And if you've been through a midlife crisis or been impacted by someone else's and you want to share your story, I'd love to hear from you. Hang in there, you guys. I will get to all of you. Please reach out to me at mlcbombdrop@gmail.com and visit us on Facebook and Instagram, MLC Bomb Drop. And just remember, your voice matters. Your story could be the one that helps someone else feel seen. It could help someone else feel heard. And it will help somebody else feel understood. You are not alone, no matter where you are in your journey. If the bomb was just dropped, the earthquake just happened, if you are 7 or 8 years in and you're coming out of starting to wake up and awaken to this, you are not alone. It's sad that this is epidemic, but we're here to provide support. So until next time, take care and live authentically each and every day. Thanks again, you guys.